like to call the November 14th, 2013 meeting of Williamsburg City Council to order. Ms. Scott, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Knudsen?
Here.
Mr. Pons?
Here.
Mayor Holman?
Here.
Vice Mayor Freiling?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here. Our first order of business today are council minutes for the meeting of October 10th, 2013, and the October 5th, 2013 City Council retreat. Are there any additions or corrections?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the approval of the minutes of October 10th, 2013 and October 5th, 2013.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please, Ms. Scott?
Ms. Knudsen?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Mayor Holman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freiling?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Great, thanks. Next order of business is matters of special privilege, and today we are privileged to have with us James City County Administrator Robert Middow. Robert, Bob, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm here to dispel the rumor that Jack had announced his retirement, and I was here to accept the job as city manager. And you know we don't make this stuff up. It was really a rumor that was circulated when you publish your agenda. Actually, I'm here to present a plaque to you, and I will show it to you and then read it. I'll show the audience. What this is a view of the James River looking south from College Creek. I think it's a lovely photograph, but we wanted to give it to you. I'll read it. It reads, "In recognition of the support and efforts given by the City of Williamsburg to help preserve the historic significance, character, and unique qualities of an incomparable American waterway, the James River. Presented by James City County with sincere appreciation, November 14, 2013, and you have both our colorful logos there to recognize this. I would add, too, is that the financial contribution you gave to us was very generous, quite impressive, and we're so pleased to have that. But we're also very pleased to have your support throughout this process, which is not over. We're still fighting the fight, whether you were testifying or writing letters and making this really a real regional effort. And for that, we are really eternally grateful. So I want to give this to you, and I'll be able to explain some of it.
Looks good.
Great. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Certainly.
That's nice.
Bob, again, thank you very much for this token, and as you know, we are still fighting the fight with you, and we will be there until we prevail. So thank you very much.
And
we
we
really
hope to.
appreciate it. Yes, I know. Thank you very much.
May I?
Yeah.
Mr. Madoff, if I could just add a word before you get out the door. I don't want to necessarily speak for the entire council, but I would guess they echo my sentiments, and I hope you'll convey to the Board of Supervisors and county staff our appreciation for James City County taking the lead on this worthy effort. At times, the prospects for success may have been and may still seem to be limited, but in my mind, and I think in the rest of council, there's little doubt that this was the right thing to do. So we're happy to help in any way we can.
Appreciate that, and I'll certainly pass that on.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Thanks. No, we'll let you get out eventually. Okay. Our next order of business is public hearing, and this is the issuance of general obligation bonds to finance the Stryker Center project. This is proposed resolution 13-16. We had a presentation on our work session. Jack, is there anything you want to add at this point?
I just want to add, you do have the proposed resolution which would authorize this financing. To it, we have appended as the attachment the particular proposal that we received from Carter Bank, and with the recommendation that we accept option number 2, which is 15-year financing at 2.6% fixed interest rate for the 15 years. Of course, there were other proposals. There were the 2 from Carter and the 1 other from PNC that were brought up as possibilities, and certainly viable proposals if you would choose to go with any one of those other proposals. But it's the staff recommendation that we take the 15-year at 2.6%. So that's all I had to say. Mr. Sanderson is here with Davenport and Company. If there are any further questions of them before or after the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. And Jimmy, thank you again for being here today. Let me go to council to see if there are any questions before I open the public hearing.
No, sir.
Any questions? Okay. If not, I'll open the public hearing and ask anyone who wishes to speak to the issuance of general obligation bonds to please come forward. If you do, please state your name and address. Seeing, yeah, if you'd like to come forward to speak to this issue. Yeah, okay. We do have an open forum at the end of the meeting and I have yellow cards for several people to speak at that point. But this is a public hearing about the issuance of bonds for the Stryker Center. Seeing no one, I'll come back to council. I'll close the hearing and come back to council for comments, discussion, and action.
Just to reflect what Mr. Sanderson conveyed to us on Tuesday, that we're fortunate to have two good options. Of the two, my preference is for the one that staff has recommended, the set finance rate over the period of 15 years from Carter Bank. Because when you look at it compared with the PNC option, which is still a good option, the benefit of the PNC one seems to be limited to a very small window between years 5 and 7. And I think we get greater flexibility off of the Carter Bank proposal, which is what we were seeking by doing the financing to begin with, that flexibility to use funds in other ways and to make the most of the borrowing power that we have at times of traditionally low interest rates and to lock in at a remarkably low rate. And so that would be my preference.
Thank you. Scott?
I'd have to say, echo what Paul said. I'm a little uncomfortable with the PNC proposal because in that 2-year window, we're putting a pretty big decision on a future council. And with this, with the Carter Bank, we know what we're getting. We know what that obligation will be down the road. I think it's smart. And I also like the idea of banking in Virginia. It's a good opportunity.
Thanks.
Well, and to that, I had hoped that there would be more of a local bank stepping up to participate, and there were some more regional banks that offered, I think, significant proposals, but they weren't quite as good as what we've seen from Carter Bank. And so I think that the benefits of what Carter Bank is offering versus some of the more regional banks far outweigh the benefit of dealing with that more regional bank. So I support staff's recommendations as well.
As I do. I agree with Mr. Freiling.
Yeah, and I think too the Scott's point of we can't really impose. I'm uncomfortable imposing risk on a future council, and I think that's what the other proposal does. So I think I've heard a lot of agreement here. So if anyone wants to offer a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that City Council approve Resolution 13-16, issuance of general obligation bonds to finance the Stryker Center project, and authorize the city manager to finalize the necessary documentation and close the 15-year transaction with Carter Bank.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please, Ms. Scott?
Ms. Newton?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Mayor Holman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freiling?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Great. Great. Thank you all very much. And again, Jimmy, thank you and all the people at Davenport for your efforts and support in this process, too. We really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next order of business are reports. The first of the monthly financial statements.
Yes, just you have the October financial statements, and this gives us, at this point, 3 months, the first quarter of the year is behind us. I would note, as we always take a look at the revenues on room tax, meals tax, and sales tax. September was a disappointing month in room tax, with a 25% less than we had in the same month last year. We're down 10.3% on the year on room tax. The meal tax was also down in September, although by not nearly so much, and we're just about level with last year overall on meals tax receipts. Sales tax for the year is up 2% over this time last year. So Mr. Serra has taken a look at this very closely to see what we could determine happened in September. We certainly see the issue of the hospitality house no longer in play. We see a few other amounts that we expect to receive in the next month that would normally have been received in this month, but nevertheless, it's still quite a large drop for September. So it is a point of concern, but that's where we are at this point through the year.
Are there other, factors such as Labor Day essentially being, sort of having one night in here rather than...
Split the month, and I think that could play in there. There were just the way the weeks fell. But every year there's something. There's either weather or there's something. So it's hard to attribute it just to that.
And the golf tournament, was that, do we sense there was an impact there?
Yeah, I didn't really know. I can't say that we saw it either way.
One thing, one thing I don't think we should lose sight of is that the latter part of September was also the period of time when everybody was looking forward to the government shutdown. And I think that it creates a number of issues. It certainly does with any conference business that is doing work related to or as a function of government, and also casts pallor on the general optimism or consumer confidence of the population. Not trying to make an excuse. I was thinking.
No, I think
trying to understand.
We have to look at it carefully and look at it as months go on. Scott, anything you want to, Doug?
Don't disagree. I think what we do have, though, is a trend. Even with Labor Day partly falling in August, August was down substantially. And so if we're down 10% for the year, following some months at the end of last year that were down, I think there is cause for concern. If you look at the numbers just for September, it's about over $1 million not achieved in room sales versus last September, which is $46,000 a day. It's a lot of money not coming in. And then if this is a trend, I think we need to.
Yeah, and that's why one of the reasons we have a joint meeting with the EDA on the 22nd, and one of the things we're going to look at there is the local economy and some benchmarks for the local economy, so we can begin to put this in some context. So I think that's going to be an important beginning of a long-term discussion about sort of what we're seeing. Judy, anything?
Well, and I know the Patrick Henry hasn't been a motel for a while, but again, they're turning it into timeshares. I mean, we're starting to see that happen too. So it's all of a piece, really.
Sure.
Many challenges to face us.
And I think, it's timeshares, and it's, I think the bigger issue is the loss of conference market in the greater Williamsburg area. If you look at all the conference hotels, the Patrick Henry Inns and George Washington Inns that are all closed, the effect of not having that market in Williamsburg is far greater than the effect of timeshares.
Sure. Again, the beginning of many discussions. Monthly operating reports, anything in particular?
I had nothing in particular to point out. Happy to.
Any questions?
I had one question. Mr. Wallentish isn't here.
But Chris is.
Thank you, Chris. I just had a question about SNAP, the food stamp program. We have 629 citizens in Williamsburg on food stamps, and Congress is going to cut back. Do we have any contingency plans? Do we have any idea what might happen?
No, ma'am, not yet. And that's 629 cases, actually, and each case is approximately 2.5 people. So you would multiply
so
that.
More than that. Yeah.
We have more, yes, ma'am. The big thing is the work requirement that has come on October 1st, that the City of Williamsburg is no longer exempt from the work requirement, meaning that individuals would have to be working 20 hours a week or volunteering 20 hours a week, or have someone in the home under 18. If they didn't meet one of those exemptions, they would only be eligible for 3 months of SNAP benefits in a 3-year period. I believe that we're going to get exempted again. We just need to wait for the General Assembly to exempt us once more. We've already been exempted on the federal side. We're just waiting for the General Assembly to act. But with the actual cut in SNAP benefits, I don't know what that would look like. I don't think there's any way to reduce the numbers of individuals on the rolls right now. There would only be reducing their benefit. And as of yet, we don't know what that would look like.
My experience is, though, that most of the people who are on food stamps are working or are children.
Correct. So the work requirement, I don't think is going to affect us hardly at all. And again, I fully believe we're going to be exempted from it, so that's pretty much a non-issue. The biggest issue would be the federal government actually cutting the monthly benefit amount.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is.
So,
Well, I just think it's something we need to keep in mind.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
and the question is what kind of interactions are you having with groups like Campus Kitchens and Big Gift from Ben and other groups that help to meet those food needs? Are they maxed out now? Is that a possible way to help people? What's your sense there?
It is. It's a possible way, and it's a way that we have been and continue to refer people to if their benefits are cut or there's some strange issue that they're not going to get their benefits on time. Currently, that is a rare instance, or it could be that someone has come in and they don't qualify for SNAP benefits right now because they just lost their job in this month. Next month they will, and that's when we would shift them over to Gift for Ben for just that little bit of time until they do become eligible. But yes, we take full advantage of all the community resources.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next are city manager reports. We have two. The first is revenue sharing funds for fiscal year 2015, and that's proposed resolution 13-17.
Okay. Does Mr. Small or Mr. Clayton like to give this report?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Again, I'm Aaron Small, city engineer in Public Works. And city staff is once again requesting that city council for permission to apply for revenue sharing funds from VDOT. We currently have 3 previous projects that were funded through this program, including the 5 sidewalk project that we did back in 2010. The currently under construction Prince George and Armistead Avenue and 7 sidewalks project, and our future FY14 Route 60 East beautification project. These are all funded by that revenue sharing. This revenue sharing program allows the city to gain more value out of our local dollars by leveraging them 50-50 with VDOT funds, with only a little bit of state oversight. Which makes it very advantageous, a very advantageous funding source for local governments. Last year, the Commonwealth Transportation Board changed the rules for the revenue sharing program and allowed for maintenance projects to be included, or maintenance projects, which includes asphalt resurfacing. And for many years, as you're aware, the city's allocated a fixed dollar amount for our annual pavement resurfacing program. But the cost for asphalt have kind of gone up dramatically over the past 8 years or so. The additional revenue sharing funds would keep us on track with our annual paving efforts. Should the funds be granted by VDOT, we intend to resurface 10 streets within the city in the spring of 2015, depending on the bids. These streets include North Henry Street and Route 132 from the railroad tracks north to the corporate limits, Parkway Drive from 2nd Street to the Colonial Parkway, Capitol Landing Road from Lafayette Street to Page Street, Merrimack Trail from Capitol Landing Road east to the corporate limits, York Street from Page Street east to the corporate limits, Jamestown Road from College Corner down to Lake Matoka, South Boundary Street from Francis Street to South Henry Street, all of Ireland Street, South Henry Street from Francis Street to Mimosa Drive, and from College Creek to Route 199. And finally, all of Yorkshire Drive, including the 4 to 5 small cul-de-sacs towards the back of the neighborhood. The total length of streets that we're proposing under this funding mechanism for revenue sharing is just over 33,000 linear feet, or 6.3 miles of roadway. And just for reference, the city currently maintains approximately 51.2 miles of streets. Our recommendation is that City Council approve Resolution 13-17 and authorize the city manager to proceed with applying for fiscal year 2015 VDOT revenue sharing funds and to execute all necessary documents relative to carrying out the revenue sharing program. And I'm free to answer any questions that you may have.
Aaron, thank you very much. That's very, very thorough presentation, so thank you. Let me turn to council for any questions.
If I may, Mr. Small, on the whole, I think the city does a very, very good job of maintaining quality street surfaces throughout. And yet we have to be careful with how the limited funds that we have available are spent. Is there a general time frame that's considered the lifespan of one surface treatment? And given, I know that some are traveled far more heavily than others, but is there any rule of thumb, or is it really just dependent upon each individual street?
So much of it depends on individual streets. It depends on substructure of the soils, the underlying soils, and the traffic. Traffic, as you mentioned, that is the major issue. Some streets that we have in the city, for instance, Jamestown Road, actually have concrete slabs underneath. And where you're seeing the deterioration along Jamestown Road between, say, in front of Phi Beta Kappa Hall, what you're seeing is the differential movement of the concrete slabs, and so you're seeing buckling of the asphalt pavement that's on top. And that also gets exacerbated by temperature changes and weather. We've seen a lot of rain this year, and that's one reason why Jamestown Road has really shown a lot of deterioration over the last 6 or 8 months. But it does vary throughout the city. I would say, in general, the residential streets can last a lot longer. For instance, Yorkshire Drive, that's on our list, has never been paved since it was built. And that was back in, I believe, 85, 87 time frame.
So is it the seams in the concrete slabs that are creating that ribbed effect as one drives?
Some of it is that. Some of it is also, you'll see, that's only in the center portion of the roadway. But towards the outer portion of the roadway, what you see is actually wear and tear in the wheel tracks themselves.
Interestingly, and this is a different street, but one that's going to be repaved on South Henry, fairly close to the entrance to the law school, or in between maybe the two entrances, there's a new dip that has formed in the last month, or maybe even less than that.
A lot of times those dips are caused by utility trenches. Even areas where they bore under the roads, you'll see those eventually start to settle and stuff.
And one specific question, in looking at Parkway Drive between 2nd Street and the Colonial Parkway,
Yes.
that is an area where there's a fairly substantial construction project proposed on
the left-hand side,
as
yes.
one heads towards the Parkway. Are we going to wait until that's done for that?
This is proposed in February. This is proposed in the spring of 2015. And as my understanding is they are currently applying for permits for land disturbing very soon, if not already.
Okay, because they haven't turned a shovel yet.
No, they have not turned a shovel yet. But that project is impending very soon.
And I don't know if this is the appropriate place, but it seems like a good opportunity just to ask staff to think about, maybe you already have, that one particular section on the left-hand side, where there's the hotel that fronts Parkway Drive there.
The Econo Lodge.
And they've done a very nice job traditionally over the years of maintaining an attractive street frontage in a very, very limited space. And we've talked about sidewalk connectivity between the condominium, or I guess townhouse project now, and 2nd Street. Do we have in any of these plans, because the roadway there is far wider than it is further down Parkway Drive, as one gets closer to the Parkway, and then on the other side of the Parkway, it appears as though the road is a good 25 to 30%, if not more, narrower farther down. When we put that sidewalk in, are we going to infringe on that right-of-way, or not the right-of-way, the landscaped area in front of the hotel, or are we going to extend the sidewalk out into the roadbed?
That sidewalk extension is actually part of the plans for the new development along Parkway. Their plan is to extend within the right-of-way or to gain an easement. I can't remember specifically. Do you remember, Reed?
The sidewalk will be behind the existing curb, and some of the landscape area in front of the hotel will be replaced by the sidewalk.
So it's not reasonable or feasible to consider moving the curb farther out and infringing more on the,
I don't think it is just for that short section.
okay. That's unfortunate.
That's too bad.
Thank you. That's all.
Thanks. And any of, Scott, any questions? Doug? No. Judy? Aaron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further discussion, comments? If not,
Mr. Mayor, I move that City Council approve Resolution 13-17 and authorize the city manager to proceed with applying for FY15 VDOT revenue sharing funds and to execute all necessary documents to carry out the revenue sharing program.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please, Ms. Scott?
Ms. Knutson?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Mayor Holman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fryling?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Our next city manager report is the Center for Digital Government Award.
Yes, the city recently received national recognition for information technology, and I asked our IT director, Mark Barham, if he would just tell us a little bit about what that was about. So, Mr. Barham.
Mark, you have a very big smile on your face.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Mayor Hall, members of council. As you are now aware, we were notified about a week ago now that the city was recognized as being in the top 10 for our population category as a digital city by the Center for Digital Government. I just want to give you a brief overview of the award and kind of what it means. First and foremost, the survey was conducted by the Center for Digital Government. They are a division of a broader company, eRepublic, which is effectively the nation's only media and research outlet focused solely on state and local governments. This is the 13th year of the survey. They also do separate surveys for counties nationwide and for the states themselves. This was the first year that localities with populations of less than 30,000 were allowed to compete. In prior years, the population category was between 30 and 75,000. So we would get notified of the award. I would fire off an email to the Center for Digital Government, giving a laundry list of all that we were doing in Williamsburg, and effectively saying, you know, we're not asking you to change your rules, but just let us throw our hat in the ring, let us compete, and just kind of see where we end up. So this year, when the survey was announced, they had actually removed that bottom, that lower limit population category. So any locality of less than 75,000 population was allowed to compete. The winner in our category this year was Palo Alto, California. I'm sure you're all very familiar with Palo Alto, the Silicon Valley area of California, home to Stanford University. Most of the winners in our category had a population ranging from 35 to 75,000 people. The closest to Williamsburg was a locality in Ohio, and I believe their population was roughly about 25,000. So we were certainly the small fish in a relatively large pond. We were cited across many areas of projects and IT initiatives, specifically some various transparency initiatives, certainly our performance management system and the associated dashboards, our e-government offerings, as well as our social media offerings, and much more. So a broad range of IT projects and services that we provide. And just kind of in conclusion, you know, the IT department, we're certainly very proud of this. This is the result of a lot of hard work by the department itself, specifically my staff, Michelle Wilson, and Emmanuel Watkins, and myself. But this is a bigger award. This is the result of a lot of city staff, cross-departmental initiatives that happened. So this is really an award that the city staff themselves, as well as the city as a whole, should be very proud of. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer.
Mark, thank you, and congratulations to you and your staff, but also to staff across the city, because I think, as you said, this was an effort by a whole lot of people, and it only works when everybody's involved. So we really congratulate you and congratulate city staff for a job well done.
Well, and I think the real recipient of what you all do is the community. It's the dashboard, it's the communications, it's the websites, it's all the things that you all do that helps the community be more engaged and have more access to what's going on in the city. So I think for that reason, I think this achievement is very substantial, and thank you, Mark. Appreciate your efforts.
I agree. Thank you.
Again, thank you and congratulations. Next order of business, city attorney reports.
Nothing today.
Nothing, okay. Next order of business is unfinished business, and here we've had discussions with the three teams doing preparations on the Stryker Center, and as a result of discussions with them, the city manager is contacting them to extend the deadline until December 2nd at noon for their submittals. We then have a meeting scheduled for their presentations on the 3rd of December, starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that will be in the third floor conference room. We're then anticipating, after those presentations, having a council discussion of the presentations. We then hope very soon after that to have a public meeting to get input from the public about these, and then follow that up with further council discussions. So that's where that stands right now. So again, those proposals will be submitted by noon on December 2nd, and then the public presentations will be on December 3rd, starting at 2 o'clock in the third floor conference room of the municipal building.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Mr. Tuttle, the presentations will happen consecutively.
Yes.
So the first one will start at roughly 2 o'clock. Will we wait until 3 o'clock for the next one, or will we just move directly into the second one after the first one's finished?
If there's nothing that stops us from going earlier, if the team is ready to go and the time is available, but they've been told to be ready to go at 2, 3, and 4. But generally speaking, people get there a little early, so if we get ahead of schedule, I'm sure we can keep it moving.
We may tend to be a little long-winded, but it is possible that we would finish early. Will each of the latter applicants or proposal providers be in the room when the earlier presentations are made?
Do you want? I've had discussions with the three teams about that, and asked them their opinions. These are open meetings. There's no protocol within the discipline for this. I think most of them would feel uncomfortable both being in someone else's presentation and having so, but we're pretty much going to leave that up to them. I think in the message we're going to send them either tomorrow or Monday about the extension, we're going to recommend that they out of courtesy not be there, but that's really up to them because it is a public meeting.
Oh, it's a public meeting, but it's also, I think you would agree, it's necessary or important that we provide as level a playing field as possible.
I agree, but
I think then it's somewhat incumbent upon us to have an appropriate place for them to wait. Well, if they choose,
which we do.
Okay, that's great. And I think it'd be good for folks to know. I guess if people wanted to hear one particular presentation over another, let's say they wanted to wait till here, and I don't know if we've determined the order yet, if they want to see the 3 or 4 o'clock, for people to be aware that it's possible that the pace of presentation could pick up, and it's better to be there earlier as opposed to right on the dot.
Well, the council meeting will be noticed at 2 o'clock, and then we'll go from there. I'm not sure how we can do that formally, but certainly we can let people know that informally. I would expect, though, with the presentations and with Q&A, and generally there's about a 10-minute break in between, that my guess is you're going to use the better part of the hour for each one.
That's my anticipation as well. I think there's going to be enough of their presentation as well as our questions. And again, it's going to be City Council as well as the evaluation committee that we used earlier sort of there so that we can have their expertise for questions. So my guess is we will probably fill most of the hour with each presentation. Any other question?
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I think this is, I am too. Excited. Under new business, we have an appointment. Jack, would you like to?
Yes. As you all know, our city clerk of council, Dee Scott, is retiring at the end of December, and so the search was begun for a successor, and a review committee or search committee was appointed for that, which consisted of Jody Miller, Assistant City Manager, Reed Nestor, Planning Director, and Jerry Walton, Executive Assistant. And so that process has been completed. And the committee and I recommend to you the appointment of Ms. Lisa Judkins to the position of Clerk of Council, effective January 1.
Thank you.
Would you like
Do
me
we
to
have a
make a motion?
motion? I believe so.
Mr. Mayor,
You
pursuant
always
to
make a motion. So
pursuant to Section 16 of the Charter of the City of Williamsburg, I move that City Council appoint Lisa C. Judkins as Clerk of the City Council effective January 1, 2014.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please, Ms. Scott?
Ms. Knutson?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Mayor Holman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fryling?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Lisa, would you please stand up? You're with us today. We really appreciate you. Congratulations. We all look forward to working with you. We look forward to you overlapping for a month with Dee, which I think will be useful to you and to us. And again, thank you very much for coming on board with the city. It's as I've expressed to you earlier, it's a terrific place to work. It's a great team, and I think you'll be an ideal addition to it. So thank you very much for being part of this.
I'm looking forward to it.
Great, thank you. That brings us to our final order of business today, which is open forum, and I have two speakers' cards. The first is, this is a time when anyone who wishes to address council on any matter may do so. If you do, please come forward and state your name and address. The first speaker's card I have is from John Whitley. Mr. Whitley, welcome.
Mayor Hallman, council members, I'm John Whitley. I live at 110 Governor Berkeley Road in Skipworth Farms. I must say that how appreciative I am of the striker process moving so inclusively and open. Thank you. That's not on the note card, Ms. Scott. I'm here to commend the good work of Chief Slogey and the Williamsburg Police Department for their attention to traffic issues on Governor Berkeley Road in Skipworth Farms. With their presence, motorists slow down when traveling to and from Richmond and Long Hill roads. That's the good news. But when they're not there, the conditions return. Folk consider it our city's own Audubon and proceed at speeds that are not comfortable for safety of the area. As I've shared with you before, we are a growing, vibrant community on our street. We have 5 new families and 5 children, some very young, some older. I'm not at all in any way speaking to advocate for police presence continuously, but am seriously asking you to help us look at what we can do to make certain that Governor Berkeley is a safe street for all. We do know that with the upcoming conditions changing at the intersection of Long Hill and Boundary, that possibly our route, which sometimes is advertised as a shortcut from Long Hill to Richmond Road, might become more attractive to folk to cut through there and not be considerate that it is a residential neighborhood. So we will appreciate your support as we look at what can be done. And I thank you. And thank you, Chief Slogey.
Great. Thank you, John. The next speaker's card I have is from Carol Anderson. If you please state your address, please. Yeah,
Sure.
that will pick your voice up.
Right. Carol Anderson, 34 Kirkland Court, here in Williamsburg. Unfortunately, Mr. Whitley told me my presence here was unwanted, and I think he specifically told me how unfortunate that I'm here. I know that for a fact, that he said unfortunate. As a woman. So I wanted to just not only congratulate the new member here of the city, but also Ms. DeWitt, Ms. Miller, Ms. Shelton, certainly Ms. Scott, who I'm really sad to hear is leaving. I wish you could both work together. I know you can't share the small salary you get. And Ms. Knudsen, I think women need to start speaking for themselves, and I'm talking about women's health. We do have someone that won for delegate, Mr. Mason. So I just wanted to say that for me, as far as a city resident, Williamsburg, first of all, someone who's on the Business or Economic Development Authority shouldn't be spreading mistruths. I'm not even talking about campaign lies, which go on all the time. But when you say that someone who was the incumbent, Mr. Watson, voted to ban something and yet have it protected when it's clearly against the health of women. Again, there's a website, Women Speak for Themselves. I think it's .com. You can look it up. But we women really need to be represented here in the city as well as the county. I think it's not shameful because it's maybe no one's fault. No one's really given it a thought. But when you do look at the health effects of the pill, you will find that since 1991, you gentlemen who've been representative of our government since then have clearly known. A pharmacist's son would know that the estrogen, which is artificial in the birth control pill, whatever form, especially the high dose, the one you take home, murder, RU-486, that actually has estrogen, again, artificial. It's against the women's system. It's a steroid. And guess what? It causes cancer, not just breast cancer. It's on the level of arsenic in your cancer-causing carcinogens. Check that out, World Health Organization. Sometimes it doesn't filter down to the CDC. So that's really what I was concerned about. And again, I don't think, Mr. Watson was trying to take away something that was good for us. This isn't candy, ladies. And if you don't take it on time, guess what happens? Why you get those blood clots? Hate to say it. I had it happen years ago. It's not a pretty thing to see in the bathroom. But I'll tell you something. It is often not just a blob of tissue. It is often an aborted baby beginning development in the blastocyte, or comes from the walls of the lining of our uterus. So that blood clot could be a baby, beginning of a baby. So that happens once yearly on the pill. So anyway, I just wanted to say, women, let's protect Virginia and her wonderful women residents. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to address council on any issue? If not, I think that we have no business for closed session. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please, Ms. Scott?
Ms. Knudsen?
Aye.
Mr. Pons?
Aye.
Mayor Holman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fryland?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.